Hi, we're going to talk about effectively using the assistants in the music classroom. These are un, just an invaluable resource as folks who really know these students and can support their learning in your classroom. So, one of the big issues in schools is, of course, is time. And you have little time to meet with classroom teachers or the assistants or the paraprofessionals. Another thing is that it's not a clearly defined supervisory relationship. You're not the principal, you're not their direct classroom teacher supervisor. So how do you think about the relationship and move it forward? I think of it as being a coach. That is, of course, they've got their head coach, the principal, and their classroom teacher, but I am a specialty area and I can coach music better than anybody else. So our time is short because they're in my room and out. And my focus is really clear to help the assistant, whatever the name is, whether it's a special ed resource or paraprofessional or special ed assistant, is to help them improve their ability to assist children in the music room. Because when you stop and look at the principles for facilitating learning in adults, you look and you say, this is very familiar. It's very much what we do with all of our students. And so that means you have to be mindfully guiding the adults in your group because they are not going to know what you want. Why is your room different than another art room or phy ed or the classroom? And so you need to be clear about what your expectations are. And you also need to recognize they may be uncomfortable in a music setting because of their own perception of their musical abilities or their experiences. So you think clearly about what do you want from an assistant in your classroom. My thought is I want the assistant to be engaged. I want them to be there helping students use their devices or communication system. I want them to facilitate the student's response, not make it for them. Facilitate it. Structuring it so that there is a way for the student to respond is up to me. Whether we have a switch where the answer can be recorded, or I keep whiteboards and markers in my classroom so that if everyone is going around and we're given a beat and we're saying the color that's our favorite, it can be written down so that everyone can see the student's response. It's not just the assistant saying it. And I see them as a support to the entire classroom, not just focused on that individual student. You have to remember you get what you ask for because no one is a mind reader. So here are some of the things that I ask for. I give out a written sheet at the beginning of the year so that there's no question and we don't have to worry about the time to talk about it. And the first thing on the thing is thanking them for their part in helping students. One ask is to get important information quickly and quietly as students come in the room. It's the first day back after suspension. Student just moved to a shelter. Student hasn't had breakfast yet. The kind of information we would really like to have on all of our students. Wait. One of the most important things for students with special needs is giving them the wait time. They have to process the language of the question or the statement. They have to, having heard it, process it, and then they have to construct their answer. And so giving students time, wait time, is really critical. And often, especially for special ed students, other students might look around and then get themselves back on track. That's what we want. We want that self-correction. If somebody is always getting you back on track, you're not going to learn to do it yourself. Remember that looking can be learning, especially for our students. If the student is not clapping or singing 100% of the time, it is okay. If they're watching and attentive to what other students are doing, so that if we were first clapping and then we've changed the beat and now we're putting on our laps and the student is still clapping but looking and then changes a little behind but independently, That's what I want, that self-correction. I want them to be attentive to reducing assistance. If they helped a student last week, back it off just a little bit. Just giving that little bit more wait time and more independence, and not just doing for the student. I encourage them to sit next to not necessarily their targeted students. Very often, my full inclusion students can do very well. There might be somebody else in the class who might need a little bit more structure. Bottom line, though, nobody leans on or sits on the assistant. I want them to be watching me for nonverbal cues. It's a music room. I try and direct a lot of my classroom with gestures and nonverbals. The other thing is we want people to have fun. Making music together can and should be the highlight of the day for everyone. I had a student from a deaf hard of hearing program who was being included in my classroom, and the special education assistant just seemed kind of grumpy. I wasn't sure what that was. And we were going to a band concert in the cafetorium. And she just said, I don't know why we're doing this. It seems like it's a waste of time. And I said, we've been learning the music. We've been talking about the instruments. We've been getting ready to hear and see if we can find these rhythms. And I had made sure that we were going to sit on the side by the percussion and the low brass with a good view of all the instruments. And after the concert, what she said to me is, it was not boring. I could feel it. I could see it. I didn't know music could be like that. And I just realized that was her experience. And I needed to have it be an engaging experience for her to ensure that the students were going to have a different experience. Now, often you may find that your students with special needs are coming with sound reducing headphones. That's fine. They can still hear you. It's a question of not being surprised by things that are too loud. They may have a seat cushion that just helps them. They may bring a fidget. I am fine with fidgets, but they can't make noise, right? One other thought on this is I had a special ed assistant bringing in several students, and I realized when we were folk dancing, wow, she did such a beautiful job with her steps, and pretty soon all the children are kind of behind her and trying to step like her. And I very gently, encouraged her to show us a little more or do a little more. And I found out she was a graduate of a Czechoslovakian conservatory in folk music. And by the end of the year, I could get her to play the piano for us so I could dance. That class could folk dance like just in an incredible way. And I realized she wasn't going to share what she had. She didn't want to overstep. But again, those hidden resources and finding the competencies in our students and in our assistants. Remember, nobody is a mind reader. We have to let them know what it is we want. We also have to acknowledge and thank them when they've done a good job, or we see, oh, that's how we should prompt this student. They're an invaluable resource for us.